Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good morning, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great start to your Friday. And we are actually approaching the end of 2022, if you can believe it or not. And with the end of the year comes a new survey from the good people over at West Michigan Works. The 2022 Michigan Job Seeker Survey was released last week, and that unveiled some of the top concerns for those here in the area trying to find new employment. And to help us break it all down is Chief Operating Officer for West Michigan Works, Angie Barksdale. Angie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Phil.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And before we get started, I want to remind everybody that you can actually find the full survey right now over on our website, woodtv.com. And in fact, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can go directly to that story by clicking that link in the description box or in the comments section, and you will still be able to watch this entire conversation from there as well. So, Angie, now that that's out of the way, first things first, the survey. Let's maybe get into a little bit more about some of the methodology you guys used in creating the report.
So this was the second year we've actually done this survey and report. So this year we expanded our reach and surveyed individuals across the state. We had just over 1,400 respondents to the annual survey this year.
Right, and of course, getting those lots of respondents, you obviously had a lot of different answers, and some of those concerns that were touched on in the survey for job seekers, of course, was about wages, maybe not being enough, or concerns about covering some of the costs. But there was actually a change that I noticed, and maybe you picked on it as well, from last year's survey concerning the COVID-19 pandemic. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So though we did see some consistency and concerns from year to year, we have seen less concerns this year than we did last year around health and safety around the COVID-19 and safety protocols. So there is some positive news there that individuals are starting to understand or get into I would say, whatever our new norm is, right? Of dealing with a pandemic. So that's one thing that's alleviating the individuals getting back into the workforce. But there is consistent barriers that we've seen from last year to this year, that being barriers such as childcare and transportation. I think this year we also seen a little bit more concern around the wage pressure. And I think really that's compounded with the inflation that we're seeing in our communities, the increased costs of gas prices and food prices and everything else that everyone has to pay for in their weekly budgets, and the need for increased wages to make ends meet. So that became highlighted as a growing issue that was a little bit more prevalent this year than it was last year's survey.
Right, and you kind of touched on the childcare aspect, and you and I talked a little bit at the end of November before the survey was released about Gentex here in West Michigan beginning the process of opening an on-site daycare for its employees. And with childcare being such a major barrier and concern for job seekers and even current employers, Gentex seems to be taking the steps into retaining those employees and attempting to get them everything that they need to keep them on board. Is this maybe something that we're going to be seeing as a trend later on? Are these some of the things that are found in the survey going to be what employers use to really avoid turnover?
Mm-hmm. We're already seeing some of these things in our employers across the region. Gentex is a great example. Not all employers will be creating on-site daycare. If they have the ability to do so, that's a great option. But there's other options that employers are investigating, right? Like flexible shift schedules, being more open to part-time shifts. Those things help alleviate some of the daycare needs, as well as programs like the TriShare program, where there's a blended funding model where it helps alleviate some of the costs for the individual. I think the other factor that's compounding childcare in our region as well is the lack of childcare options, right? So as a workforce development agency, we're also working with our community partners across the region about how do we build some capacity, because it's difficult for families to even find licensed daycare as well as paying for it. So it's a multifaceted issue. So we're seeing employers tackle that in different ways, right? And trying to help employers attract new individuals to come work with them, as well as retain those individuals within their workforce.
Absolutely. And one more thing, Angie, before we let you go, we know you're very busy today and we appreciate you taking the time out speaking with us on the live desk. But, that survey covered a lot of different topics. And obviously, with all those respondents, there was a lot of number crunching going into that and a pretty arduous process. But what, in your opinion, was the biggest takeaway you got from that survey, maybe compared to other surveys in the past, or really something that stood out is maybe it didn't change, but the fact that it stayed the same played a really kind of, made you take a second look at it?
Yeah, well, I think it's, consistency helps set some trends, right? So things are getting a little better in some areas and not in the other. I think the other thing that's unique about our survey is it's really focused on the individual job seeker themselves. A lot of the data out there these days comes from different perspectives, a lot of surveys from employers in terms of what their needs are, which is great. We need that information as well. But as an organization that works with individuals, it's really important for us to know specifically what our job seekers and our customers need. So we're helping align our services, maybe redeploy things differently, think about how we're helping overcome some of those barriers. So I think one thing that is interesting for us was some of the consistency around childcare, transportation. I think the other thing that was consistent that we've seen from last year to this year is older workers feeling like they're falling through the cracks and struggling to connect back into the workforce. Someone with individuals with, years of experience or multiple degrees, but are getting overlooked in the hiring process for one reason or another. So those things help us and our employers help realign services to meet the needs.
All right, Angie. Well, once again, thank you so much for joining us today on the live desk. A really important topic. Really glad we got to discuss it a little bit more in depth. And I want to remind everybody that full survey can be found right now over on our website, woodtv.com. Angie, thank you again so much for coming on the live desk today.
You're very welcome, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And I want to thank everybody else for tuning in to this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Penarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.